I'm in-house counsel for the Jockeys Guild, and I want to give you a little bit of background and information on the Guild and jockeys and what the jockeys do within the industry. Many of you here are obviously, hopefully, attorneys, and with that being the case, a lot of the jockeys need representation for various things, whether it be an immigration issue or here in the state of New York, workers' comp in the event that they're injured. When they have individual matters, the attorneys typically work with the Guild. So a little bit about the Guild. We were originally established in the 1940s by the leading jockeys, Eddie Acaro, Don Mead, Johnny Longden, and others. Because the jockeys at the time didn't have any sort of coverage, they came together to create the organization. For the last 75 years, we've been committed to serving the thoroughbred and quarter horse jockeys so that we can work to provide safer racing environment and then hopefully get insurance for the riders. We're working to this day, we're still working to try and achieve many of the same goals they were trying to achieve then. We're improving safety over and over. We're working with horsemen. We're working with the rest of the industry to achieve those goals. I'm not going to go into my whole presentation because we've kind of changed our panel, but I do want to touch on some important points of this so that we can then have a general discussion kind of with Drew and with Gary about the practical application of what has been discussed with the other two, with Will and with, excuse me, Bob. And forgive me, I'm trying not to lose my voice and cough. I've been a bit ill, and I'm trying to keep talking to you guys. So to touch a little bit, again, with what we've been dealing with, when the jockeys are coming here to the United States, many of them are coming to the United States because of the opportunities that racing, our industry, presents for them. So when they come over, there are two visas that are available to them. It's the P1 and the 01. When they come over and they are applying for their visas, there's certain things that they need to do in order to file for those petitions. And with that being done, the Guild normally provides the advisory opinion because there's not a union. The Guild is not, there's not a labor union for the jockeys. So we are recognized by the Department of, or by the Immigration. Even though we're not technically a union, we're recognized as the one to provide those. So if you do have a jockey that you are preparing a petition for, please contact us so we can help you and facilitate that. Because they have been denying petitions recently. They've had a lot of issues with the Vermont location. They don't understand racing for some reason. They don't understand how our industry is working, and we've been seeing an increase in denials. The other thing, and I'm going through my notes like I said, because I had the presentation, we were doing it that way. The other thing that has been rising recently, and with the increase in denials, they don't understand that they're not employees of their agents. So they want to see contracts that are being provided. They want to be able to review the contract between the agent and the jockey. They don't necessarily understand that the agent works for the jockey. They don't understand that they're not the employee of the trainer. They don't understand that they're not the employee of the owner. So they also don't understand that there's not a set schedule or a length at the racetrack, that we can't provide them the exact dates and the locations that they're going to be at any given time. Although jockeys typically have their tack at a particular track, they don't understand that they can change locations at any given time. So it's been a bit difficult trying to explain that to immigration. We keep continually trying to educate them with regards to how the industry works, and you would think that they would have an understanding, but unfortunately we haven't been able to accomplish that. We've seen an increase in the it's not, and I shouldn't say it's just with jockeys. This has been going on with all of the equine, as we were saying, with all of the equine. But what we've had to deal with the jocks recently, we've had an increase in denials of reapplications, where jockeys have been here for 5 years and they are professional jockeys, and they are jockeys that are in top 100 jockeys, but they are saying they're not recognized as international professional athletes because they are only riding now in the United States. So they are denying them and trying to send them back to their country, saying that they are no longer qualified. It's become, there's been a bit of a difficult situation that we're having. So if you are representing and you are having an issue, please contact us. We have attorneys that we've been working on these cases so that we can help you facilitate that. The other issue that we've been having, obviously, is the long debate that has been going on is whether or not jockeys are employees versus independent contractors. It's something that has been an issue for a long time, and we won't go in, again, I don't want to take up all the time going into that, but there is, in my presentation, there's notes that you guys have been provided. If you have a case that comes up where that arises, we can discuss it, and I'll be more than happy to help you with that. The last thing that I do want to talk about is injuries with the jockeys, and this relates again to our employment issue. It's not a matter if a jockey is going to be injured, it's when a jockey will be injured. This is something that happens literally every single day. I get a phone call of a jockey being injured. It's the only profession where you have an ambulance following you as you do your job. When a jockey is injured in a race, there's either an on-track accident policy of $500,000 or $1 million, or here in the state of New York, and then there's 4 other states where jockeys are provided coverage under workers' comp. So if you are representing a jockey, you may be contacted here. It's pretty smoothly, everything goes pretty smoothly because we work with the state fund. In New York, the exercise riders and the jockeys are covered under a state fund. They are treated as employees of the state fund. This is something that's recently come under where there was consideration of removing the exercise riders from the state fund. I'm sure Gary and Drew will be touching on this. It's something that was heavily discussed recently. It is something that we believe is very important. We're trying to get workers' comp, jockeys covered under workers' compensation in all of the states, because the injuries, when they do happen, if it's not something simple and minor as a broken wrist, broken arm, broken wrist, something simple, it is catastrophic. When I get the phone calls that they are injured, my first thing, are they conscious? Are they able to move? Do they have feeling? Because every single year we have 2 jockeys on average that are paralyzed and 2 jockeys that are killed. As with all the technologies that we've had and everything that we've done to improve the safety of our sport, we've worked with the Horsemen, we've worked with the Jockey Club, we've worked with the NTRA, the Safety and Integrity Alliance, everything to improve our sport, the equipment. Unfortunately, that's something that has happened, that does happen, and so the workers' comp is something that we believe is necessary, and the state of New York is great for that. The other thing that's recently happened here in the state of New York, we've had legislation to where the jockeys are provided with a health insurance benefit too. It's a great thing I do want to point out and thank the governor and Horseman for providing that. The final thing that and I won't, like I said, I won't go into anymore, but if you do have any questions, or if you do have a jockey, because I do want to let everybody else, and then we can have discussion amongst the panel. But if you do have any questions, or if there are any jockeys that do contact you, again, as individual attorneys, please feel free to reach out to us or the Guild. If there's anything we can do to assist you with an individual case, please feel free to contact me.
Just on the Injured Jockeys Compensation Fund, I gather most of us are New York practitioners, but if not, just give you a little history. There was a seminal case on assumption of the risk in New York, Turcotte v. Fell. Ron Turcotte rode Secretariat. He was in a race subsequent to that, obviously, where he was paralyzed from the waist down. Jeffrey Fell, the jockey, was competing against him. During the race, the stewards deemed he had come over on him. I'll say caused the injury, caused the horse to stumble and fall. He was disqualified out of that race. In any case, Ron Turcotte sued Fell, saying that it was, he sued Fell. And the court said no, that he had no remedy at law because he assumed the risk as a professional jockey that he could fall down, horses bump, these things happen. In reviewing that, the New York legislature said we have to have a remedy for these jockeys. So they created this legal fiction, the Injured Jockeys Compensation Fund, making everyone who pays into the fund pseudo-employer of the jockey, so they could collect workers' compensation as their remedy. So under the Injured Jockeys Compensation Fund, originally, jockeys, although independent contractors, not an employee, not deemed an employee, were deemed an employee of the fund, legal fiction. Later on, the exercise riders became part of the fund. Again, exercise riders could be employees of the trainer, i.e. on the payroll, or independent contractors, exercise riders who go from barn to barn getting paid via 1099. All that became irrelevant under the Injured Jockeys Compensation Fund because they became, under the legal fiction, they were all employees of the fund, and their only remedy at law was workers' compensation. Sounds pretty good, and it is pretty good. If you own racehorses in the state of New York, and your exercise rider gets run over by another exercise, or gets a serious injury in the morning, you can't be sued. Or you can be sued. I had a case where a trainer was sued, but I put in a motion to dismiss, citing primarily Injured Jockeys Compensation Fund, and secondarily, primary assumption of the risk pursuant to Turcotte v. Fell. And counsel on the other side, not being an equine practitioner who brought the suit, dismissed voluntarily, didn't want to litigate, probably had his head exploded when he saw the papers, because if you don't understand the law, it's complicated. Fast forward to, I'm an expert witness on a case out of West Virginia where a jockey was severely injured and he can no longer race and he's disabled. The New York owners of a horse racing in West Virginia being sued for more than $1 million in a personal injury case, and they have not had that case dismissed against them because the case continues and languishes, and they're spending over $100,000 so far in litigation costs. They haven't gotten to trial yet. So the Injured Jockeys Compensation Fund is really, although expensive, it is a great prophylactic protection for a horse owner. Because remember, negligence lawyer is going to sue everybody, the racetrack, the other owner, you're going to get sued. This protection, this Injured Jockeys Compensation Fund, this legal fiction, is a blessing to owners in New York, and something that when they talked about taking the exercise riders out, very dangerous thought, and I'm glad that they rethought that position from a legal point of view. I might have been able to send my kids to better schools, but because there'd have been more litigation. But at the end of the day, I believe the Injured Jockeys Compensation Fund is properly in place in New York, and a real protection to people who invest real money in racehorses. Because as Mindy says, it's not a question of when the jockey, if the jockey or the exercise rider will be hurt, it's when. Prior to becoming an attorney, I've represented Angel Cordero, Chris Antley, Jose Santos, and a panoply of others. No matter their level of ability, and no matter how good a horse they're on, it's only a matter of time that they're going to be injured. And it's only a matter of time that every exercise rider on the backstretch is going to be injured at some point, because it's 40 miles an hour and there's no safety belt. So as it relates to that area of the law in New York, it's pretty specialized. If you ever have a case that relates to an exercise rider or a jockey being injured, your first look for protection from defense point of view, Injured Jockeys Compensation Fund, 2 seminal cases on assumption of the risk, Turcotte v. Fell, and my good friend Chris Whitstruck reminds me, Maddox versus the city of New York. Elliot Maddox was a center fielder. Chase Stadium told the field manager, you know, there's holes in the outfield, somebody's going to get hurt. He was on notice, didn't matter. Elliot went out and played, tore up his knee, ended his career, tried to sue the city of New York, general assumption of risk. Maddox versus the city of New York. So those are just 2 little points about Injured Jockeys Compensation Fund. Independent contractor, maybe a jockey's independent contractor, but for the purposes of injury and workers' comp, there's no question in New York, they are all employees of the fund, and everybody who pays into the fund is his employer as well. So if you have any questions on that, I thought I'd just clarify.
And to follow up with the regard, I don't know why I did it again, habit. To follow up with if you do have a jockey that contacts you and is injured, and the tracks here in New York, they have what is called a catastrophic policy. If you have a jockey that has a catastrophic injury, they sign a waiver that says they will not sue the racetrack, the owner, in addition to, and this is regards to serious injuries, they have to meet a certain level of injury on the AMA guidelines to qualify, but this is an additional benefit that is provided to them. So you need to make sure that if you are representing the rider that you are aware of this. If you have a rider that is injured, please contact us so we can provide you with that information as well.
And now, Gary, with all this legal information, tell us how you get through putting one foot in front of the other every day.
You guys can all take a deep breath now. Okay, all the legal side of this is over. I'm a horse trainer. I'm not a lawyer, but I've certainly been through the legal ringer a few times. And you know, we were talking about H-2B visas and whatnot. One thing, Bill talked about trainers not doing paperwork well. That's the truth. When we were taught not to do paperwork well. Frank Martin, Laz Barrera, guys that I came up under, didn't do paperwork well. And the New York State Department of Labor and Immigration taught us very quickly how important it is to do paperwork. So you're not going to find a trainer in New York State that doesn't do the paperwork anymore. And they didn't come in and say, hey guys, here's how we want you to do it. They came in and said, you're not doing it right. Contessa, $25,000 fine here, $30,000 fine here. No school. They didn't teach us what to do. I did what I was taught to do, but when they came in and decided they wanted paperwork, they got it and they got our attention. So we do the paperwork now, and like I said, New York, everybody does the paperwork. The I-9s, look, as was mentioned, maybe 90% of the workforce is undocumented, but the key to the racetrack is something you need to remember. The American public does not want that job. I mean, my kids, I have 5 kids. Not one said, hey, Dad, it's 20 below zero. Can I come out and walk horses for you this morning? I want to get kicked, bit, fall down, get hurt. Can I come out and do that job? This is not a job that any longer, and I think it did more when I was a kid, but I don't see it attracting the American workforce. I haven't had an American kid, American born and raised kid come looking, I want to be a trainer, I want to be this, I want to be a foreman, I want to be a rider in many, many years. It is a job that appeals to foreign workers. So we rely on the H-2B visa program, and I use it. Now this year, I got the audit. Now, I get my H-2B visa workers through a law firm in Kentucky. And I never looked at the list until this year. I had 14 names on there. So at the end of this year, they said to me, Gary, we'd like the payroll records on all 14 employees. Wow, I pulled out the list. That's the first time I ever looked at it. Unfortunately, only 8 of the guys that work for me were on that list of 14. I don't know where the hell the other 6 went. They never came to work for me, and I don't know where they wound up. And I don't want to point a finger at the lawyers. I don't want to point a finger at anybody, but I wanted 8 guys, and I got 8 guys, but on my list I had 14. That is still going. I don't know what's going to happen with that audit, but I have 6 guys on that list that don't exist. They have not come out with any kind of ruling yet, but I certainly know that when I get that H-2B visa list this year, it's going to coincide with every single guy that's on my payroll. And I also know a little bit more about the rules. But I never even saw that list last year, and the year before, and the year before that. And like they were saying, they used to fill these lists with guys, and some of those guys went to another trainer because he didn't want to pay for it or he needed help. And some of these guys go to the restaurant workers. I don't know where they ended up, but they didn't all come to work for me. We have a lot of situations. I'm not going to waste anybody's time, but I have a guy, his name, we'll call him Sanchez, worked for me for 14 years, filled out a good I-9 form, lives in Elmont, owns a house, made about $900 a week working for me. His wife works for me. He has 5 kids. His kids are 14, 11, 9, 6, and 3. He has a friend that gets picked up by immigration here in Saratoga, gets arrested, gets put into detention in Albany. So Sanchez to the rescue. Now, I don't even know that Sanchez has some immigration issues because he's been able to get a license with NYRA, and he's been able to fill out and present me with documentation for my I-9 responsibility. He drives down to Albany Detention Center to pick this guy up when they're ready to release him, and they say to him, "We want to see your documentation." Idiot. He gets detained, and he is now in the system. He loses his license at NYRA. He's been with me for 14 years. Loses his license. He's got 5 kids living in Elmont in a house that he owns. How he got all this stuff, that's just part of the way it is. So he goes through court. I try and get Drew on this. Okay, Drew can't help him. Nobody can help him. We get the best available immigration attorney. He says, basically, you're screwed. And this guy, here's what the outcome is. Because you have 5 kids living in the United States, you can stay here, but you're not allowed to work. So now he's one of those guys where you see the 20, 30 Mexican kids standing on the corner waiting for a truck to pull up and give him day work. That's what he's doing, but he was a vital part of my organization. NYRA will not give him a license. He's in the system. God only knows when he's going to get out of the system. I don't know, but he cannot get a license, and he's an able-bodied worker, yet they're not deporting him. They just said you can't work. We will not give you a license to work at the racetrack where you've been working for 14 years. Drew was on this. He may have an opinion on this, but the bottom line was no one has been able to help this guy, so he's in limbo. When I need something done at my house, he comes over, he paints my house. I have him do things. He's living in the United States. He's a great guy, but he can't get out of this trap that he's in because of his own stupidity with immigration. So he hasn't been able to clear. I am much more in tune with the H-2B visa program this year, but I may lose my privilege of having H-2B visa workers when they get done with this audit, because I know they're not happy about this. And honestly, I'm a trainer. I'm on the phone, on the internet, getting yelled at by an owner, fighting with jockey agents, fixing a problem horse, fixing an employee situation. I am working all day long. I never looked at the H-2B visa paper that was mailed to the general mailbox at Belmont because I didn't think I had to. I got the 8 guys I asked for. They were working there. Little did I know there were 14 on there. And nobody knows where those other 6 are. But H-2B says if somebody on your list stops working for you, you are legally bound to let the Department of Homeland Security know within 2 days, or you are screwed. And I'll let you know at the next year's how this worked out. But that's the situation. I mean, my paperwork's going to get better, but I never even saw that paper. Or maybe it was on my desk and somebody put it somewhere else, and I just never saw it. So that's what we're up against. We have a workforce of American people that do not want to work on the racetrack. It is ridiculous. You work a lot of hours. You can get hurt. You're in the cold. You're in the extreme heat, the rain, everything. I mean, my help was out there this morning, 5 o'clock this morning. It poured until 11 o'clock. Everybody soaked to the bone. Horses got to exercise. We don't have an American workforce. We count on the H-2B visa program, and we have other programs. She mentioned the P1. One of the most famous Irish jockeys in the country is a guy named Kieran Fallon. Really good jockey, great guy. He gets to ride in the United States because I did this much paperwork to get him his P1. And he got it, and I actually thought, damn, when I get done with this, Kieran Fallon's going to come work for me. I did all that paperwork, and I haven't seen him. I think I saw him for about 5 minutes, but he's good for the next 5 years, and now I understand that. I didn't understand it at the time. I thought I was going to have a little control over Mr. Fallon, and I was going to have a hell of a rider working for me. That's not the way it works. But it took my paperwork and my effort to get Kieran as P1. And that's it. All trainers are up against this. They're right. Most trainers aren't good with paperwork. We're getting better because of the sanctions put against us and the demands by the state, but it didn't come easy, and it's not like there's a school or a class. You know, trainers, they don't call, hey, attention all trainers, we have an I-9 program class for you guys coming up on Friday night, or an H-2B visa program coming up for you on Thursday. Why don't you all come down and we'll teach you how to do it right? Doesn't happen. Unfortunately, in our business, we only find out when we do something wrong, and that's the way it is.